what you have here is 1962 through 1966 building of the Henry Neely Dam, which is about 5.5 miles this direction. In the process, put these huge turbines into the ground, had to move a whole lot of this substance, which I call dirt, and they had to scrape the 10 Islands area of the Coosa River. Well, in the process of moving all that dirt, they uncovered 3 Native American burial mounds and 2 Native American villages from different time periods, way different. So they stopped working on the dam for a minute and a half and put historians and archaeologists, anthropologists out here. They studied this area, and from there, what they came up with, this entire area was home to Native Americans for thousands and thousands of years. They would, of course, raise their children, bury their dead in the mounds. They would go on expeditions such as hunting expeditions, trading expeditions. Mm-hmm. When they did that, a lot of times they had to cross the Coosa River. When they had to cross the Coosa, they did it right here. These white lines are shallows. Now, before this dam was built right across that big island, most of the time, this area was only about ankle deep. So it was the crossing spot. Anyway, as I said, this way of life goes on for thousands of years until the year 1540. 1540 is marked as a watershed for the region because, according to oral tradition, Hernando de Soto and his conquistadors came down here, crossed over on the shallows, and set up a temporary camp. Very temporary. They weren't there probably a full week. But this marks the first time Europeans have seen the place, and century after century they just keep coming. So with that in mind, we jump from 1540 all the way up to 1813. In 1813, the United States is involved in the War of 1812, fighting against the British on the high seas, on the Atlantic seaboard, fighting them up in Canada, Canadian militia and some British regulars, fighting them in the Ohio country under some British regulars, and then a lot of Chief Tecumseh's Shawnees and their allies, the Sauk and the Fox and a couple other times. And they're fighting right down here in what at that time was called the Mississippi Territory. Sorry about that. Anyway, and down here, the main antagonist to the United States is the Red Stick faction of the Creek Indian Nation. About 1/3 of the Creek Nation is Red Stick. The other 2/3 are called White Sticks. Now, the Red Sticks are allied to the British, White Sticks allied to the United States, or just want to be left alone. Well, a lot of them are like. Anyway, like I say, about 1/3 of the Red Stick, 1/3 of the Creek are Red Sticks. And there are other Native American area tribes in the area. You got Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Cherokee, and all of those were allied to the United States in total. So what you're kind of looking at there is a Creek Nation civil war. They're fighting amongst themselves, and into the middle of all this stuff comes General Andrew Jackson and his volunteer Tennessee Army. They cross over on the shallows, go up to this hillock here. They build a fort called Fort Strother. The reason Jackson builds this fort where he does, it's only, like I say, about 5.5 miles back that direction. He wants to take it, he wants a forward base to use as his command post for his operations against the Red Sticks. He knows a few things about it. First place that he wants to take is a little area about 10 miles from where we're standing, this direction. It's called Ohatchee. Little village. Jackson's got some intel on it. He knows that for instance, that there are no guns in this village. But he also knows 2 expeditions have been sent out. One was going up north to the Ohio country to find British traders to trade for guns. The other was sent south into Spanish Florida to try and buy guns directly from the Spanish. Jackson wants to take this village out before they get back with the guns, which makes sense. He goes to his cavalry commander, a Lieutenant Colonel John Coffee. Coffee's got about 900 cavalry under his command. Jackson tells him, Coffee, I want you to go down to Ohatchee. I want to take him out, and I want it done yesterday. Well, he said, I'd love to do that, but our cartographers have not been down here long enough. We ain't got any decent maps of the area. And the terrain's just horrible. There's mountains and hills, there's briars and brambles. If we could get down there and miss that village by a quarter mile, all of a sudden I got my 900 men down there with the main Red Stick Army coming up from the southeast. About the time these boys in Ohatchee get their guns back. So he'd be right in the center of them. And Jackson shows he's a typical general at this point. And I can say that. I've worked with a lot of generals. And he looks at him and says, that sounds like a real problem, Colonel. Take care of it. And he goes over to his command tent and puts his feet up. So poor old Coffee's left with this dilemma. Got all these problems. He does have one thing that's pretty good, though. One asset. There's this one scout that he's got that's just really good. And he goes to him and says, hey, I want you to form a scouting party, go find that village, be able to lead me to it. You can come on back so you can lead me, and I want it done yesterday just like the general wanted. Yes, sir. So this old boy, he goes out there. He's good. Takes a scout party. He finds a village, and he gets back, knows exactly how to get back to it, and he does all of this in one day. So old Coffee's kind of pleased with it. The scout's name, by the way, is Davy Crockett. So he was a pretty good old scout. Well, they take off the next morning, and they get down there to the village, and Coffee looks at it, and first thing he notices is this village is surrounded on 3 sides by water. It's at the confluence of 2 big creeks. That 4th side is just as flat as a pancake, wide open, excellent farmland, still is today. So he looks at that and said, well, obviously that's going to be my way into the village. He looked at the village itself and he took pause, because these guys lived in what they call longhouses. It's a type of log cabin, but it's not like the pioneer log cabin. They're made with logs about this big around. These things are this big around, and they're stood upright and lashed together. They put mud and whatnot in between the cracks, chink them up. But and it makes for a big dwelling. The reason being they might have 6 families living in one of these things. And the only reason I'm telling you about them is because old Coffee looks at it and says, hey, my boys' guns will not penetrate those big logs. So I've got to get them to come out of the cabin some way or the other. So he came up with his plan. He took his 200 best men and said, you go over there to that flat spot. And said, when I give you the signal, I want you to charge into that village and shoot it up. I don't care if you use real bullets or not. Just make noise, raise Cain, then run back to your start place and then make sure you're ready to lay down a volley of fire. Yes, sir, say the 200. He takes his other 700, he puts them in the creek bank. So they've got this whole village surrounded. He gives the signal. The 200 run in, they shoot everything up, and they run back, reloading as they run. And out of these cabins come an estimated 500 Red Stick warriors. and they're waving tomahawks, bow and arrow, lances, and knives. No guns. They come around to the 200. Coffee gives a signal. The 200 fire into them. Most of the people there said that was probably all that was really needed. But Coffee is a cautious man. He had them reload and shoot into them again. And over the course of those 2 volleys, an estimated 450 of those 500 warriors were either killed instantly or were mortally wounded and died within minutes after the volleys. And this really got to these Tennesseans. A lot of them wrote in their diaries and journals about it. Crockett himself wrote in his journal that at that point, we just shot them like they were dogs. Well, the 50 or so that are still in fairly good shape run back to their cabins, get up into the doors and windows, continue to resist with bow and arrow. Coffee gets his people up, gives them a signal to close in. They all start closing in on the village, and he yells out one last order. He says, "Don't fire another shot into that village, so we want to talk them out." So they start yelling, "Hey, we know you got women and children in the cabins. We don't want to hurt them. Surrender. We'll give you an honorable surrender. Nobody else will have to die today." And they're not listening to that. These arrows keep coming out the windows and doors. So right in the middle of all that, this one little Tennessee boy gets too close to one of these cabins. Door flies open, and this woman steps out onto the little rock porch that she's got there. And she's got a bow in one hand, a bowstring in the other, and a quiver of arrows on her back. And she starts stringing that bow. Tennessee boy saying, "Ma'am, you need to go get your babies and come out. You know, nobody's going to hurt you. We'll take care of you. Come on out." She puts that thing together, shoots him right in the throat. So he can't talk anymore. He's got this arrow half in and half out his throat. Starts spewing blood, according to witnesses, and he's twisting around, falls over and dies. That's when about 13 of his buddies picked up their rifles and shot that woman right off that little rock porch she was standing on. And then they said, "You know, we don't need to lose another single person of ours to do those people a favor." So they got their torches and they set fire to that village on 2 sides, and it starts burning up. Now these Tennessee boys, I keep calling them boys for a reason. The vast majority of that force that was there was made up of boys between the ages of 16 and 22. Young folks. And they went into this thing like a bunch of kids going to the college game, you know, rah, rah. And they shot those 450 warriors down, dead. They kind of sobered up a little. They see, hey, this is serious business. They saw the boy get killed, fall over dead, and starts getting in their heads, hey, I can get killed doing this stuff too. Then they saw the fire. Their morale's just going down watching. This is a horrible thing to see. And one last thing got to them. They were watching those last warriors up in the windows and doors, and they caught on fire. Some of them did, at least became human torches. But as they're burning to death, they're trying to put one more arrow in that bow and trying to take one more enemy with them before they went down. And this is because of the Creek warrior ethos. Creeks, red stick and white stick both, they believe if you got in a fight, it can only end one of 2 ways. You either win or you die. Well, they died that day by the bunches. Now, the Tennesseans did manage to pull 22 old warriors alive out of the fire. They were old, crippled up, hadn't been in the battle. And they got about 186 women and children out alive. That was it. Everybody else burned up. And they're all down about it. Their morale was just on the ground at the end of this. And Coffee himself's walking around, sees this one woman laying there without a wound of any kind on her. Oh, he's especially upset at this. He's been in battle before. This is the first one where a lot of women and children got hurt, and it's affected Coffee a little bit. But he sees this one woman laying there dead, not a mark on her of any kind. She's died from smoke inhalation. So Coffee rolls her over. Underneath her, there's a baby boy about 10 months old, alive. And so he picks him up and figures, well, that's his mama. His dad's bound to be dead. There just weren't that many men left. So I guess what I need to do is take him to the Creek women and turn him over. So he goes over and tells this assemblage of Creek women, hey, one of you need to take this baby. He's a Creek baby. I said, we're not going to do it. And he said, why not? They said, well, you killed his mother and father. Well, yeah, I know I killed his mother and father. Oh, what's that got to do? And they said, well, what you don't know is you also killed both sets of grandparents, all his aunts and uncles, all of his cousins, all of his brothers and sisters. He's the only one left of his family. He's only 10 months old, so it'll be a burden to us. And what we'll do, if you force him on us, we'll take all of his family, put him on sacred soil, and then we'll take that baby, put it right in the center of him, and let the family spirits watch over the baby while we go off and do whatever we got to do. And he's seen too much blood and gore that day. He's, no, that's not happening. He takes one of his trusted minions and sends him back to Fort Strother over there to Jackson with the baby. And they bring the baby in, show him to Jackson, and a miracle took place right then and there. Because you had old red-headed, Irish background, bad-tempered, and didn't like Native Americans anyway, Andrew Jackson. He looks at this baby and just fell in love with him. He gave him a Creek name, Linquoya, which meant little stranger. And he put a little tag around him, sent him back up north to the Hermitage, his home in Tennessee. And this little tag had a note to his wife, Rachel, said, hey, Rach, this is our kid now. Take care of him. And so pioneer women put up with a lot. Anyway, she got him up there, and then later after the war, when Jackson got back home, finally, he adopted this kid, raised him as his own son. He became Linquoya Jackson. But anyway, that's the Battle of Ohatchee. I think it was November the 3rd, 1813. The first victory for the American side on this. Also Jackson's first victory, even though he wasn't there. And he goes on, fights another 7 battles, I think it is, down to Horseshoe Bend, where he breaks the Creek resistance. Chief Red Eagle comes in and surrenders to him, and lets Jackson free, where he's allowed to take his army now over to New Orleans. Takes on the British there and does them a number. And for that, later on, he gets to be president of the United States. But anyway, that's about Jackson. And we're talking about this land here. 1864, a war comes right back to this place. Let's see, you got Union General Rousseau with 2,500 cavalry on this side of the Coosa. You got Confederate General Clanton, 300 cavalry on this side of the Coosa. And Clanton's bosses sent him a little communique. Said, under no circumstances allow Rousseau to cross the Coosa River. And he wrote them right back. That same instant, he says he outnumbers me 12 to 1. If he wants to cross that river, he's probably going to come across it. Anyway, all this leads up to the 2-day skirmish of 10 islands. And the objective for both sides is this, the crossing. And the first day, Confederates actually win. They disperse all the Union forces. They control both sides of the crossing. But by breakfast time the next morning, Rousseau's got his people reorganized and back together, smashes into the Confederates, kills a whole bunch of their enlisted and let's see, captured a couple of his major officers and put Clanton himself and what was left of his command back to their side of the Coosa. But Clanton thought he knew what Rousseau's mission was. He said, I'll bet he's going to cross that Coosa River and come over here to Blue Mountain, which is over in Anniston area, and burn the Confederate arsenal that's over there. So he took what was left of his command to go guard the arsenal. None of that had anything to do with Rousseau's mission. Rousseau had been in contact with General William Tecumseh Sherman for about a year. Sherman's planning his attack on the city of Atlanta. He wanted Rousseau to bring all that cavalry down to this little area in Alabama. What was the name of it? Anyway, he's got all of that up there in Alabama. It's an area that's under Union occupation already. But he wanted him to use that cavalry to jump off from Decatur. That was it. To jump off from Decatur, raid southeast across the state of Alabama, down to the Montgomery to West Point, Georgia Railroad. This is an east-west track. He wanted Rousseau to tear that track up, and that would keep Confederate men and material from coming down there and then turning north and quickly reinforcing Atlanta. That would make Sherman's attack on the city easier, so they thought. So that was Rousseau's primary mission. Secondary to that, he's supposed to take out any military target of opportunity along his path of march. So he crosses the Coosa River, finds all these iron-producing places out here, to include our own Janney Furnace. For Janney Furnace, he gets a Captain Ed Ruger. Gives him 300 cavalry and a set of written orders to go and burn down the Janney Furnace and any buildings that support it. So he and his happy band in blue come riding over the hills out there. They come up on the furnace, and sure enough, there's a Confederate militia unit guarding the place. This militia unit consists of 2 old guys, both of them over the age of 60, who are in charge, and 6 young fellows between the ages of 13 and 16. There's your militia. You can guess where this is about to go. Well, the 300 professionals rode down on the 8 amateurs. They killed 2 of the kids almost instantly. And the rest of that militia unit dropped guns, dropped packs, shoes, ran into the woods as hard as they could go. I don't blame them a bit. If I'd been in charge of it, I might have done it too. But the cavalry did not chase the militia into the woods. They came back, carried out their mission. They burned down the furnace out here. And old Captain Ed Ruger, in addition to being a cavalryman, he was a captain of engineers. And what that means is he's allowed to play with dynamite. And he brought some, so he put it around the small chimney next to the main stack, blew that little chimney off of it. And he looked at his orders. The order said to burn the Janney Furnace and any buildings that support it. All around the Janney Furnace out here, there's a mixed race community. And there's a livery stable and grocery stores and general store, whatever you want to call it. And there's houses and shacks all around the area. Well, Ruger looks at that and he says, you know what? He said, at least some of the people that live in those houses and shacks must work up here at the furnace. So in that way, those buildings are supporting the furnace. So just to be safe, he burns the whole place down. Everything's burnt to the ground. They did an excellent job of it, too. We're still looking for parts of it. Anyway, kind of brings us full score around. What we have, the furnace and the monument and the museum for, is to remember our history. Calhoun County Council they own the place. They like me to emphasize Calhoun County history, of course. So with that in mind, all of this all of this history I've given you from beginning to end took place in about a 20-mile length along this Highway 144 out here. All that history is jammed together. So, at this point, what I do, I cut you loose. You can look at the artifacts any way you want to. If you got a question, throw it out, and I'll see if I can answer it. If I got an answer, I'll give it to you. If I don't, I'll tell you that I don't. And if you look too sad, I'll make something up. But anyway, you're not totally done with me anyway, because as you're going around, you'll get certain things, and I'll pop up and inflict some more information on you.
Oh, thank you so much for this information. I appreciate it.
Oh, yes, sir.
I really do. Thank you.